everyone. Welcome to another installment of Music from Home, a series of videos by Yakima Symphony Orchestra musicians. My name is Jeff Snedeker. I'm the principal horn of the orchestra, and I am very pleased today to introduce you to the horn section of the Yakima Symphony. Everybody wave. Yeah, see, there they are. Yes, we are very pleased to share with you a little bit about what we do as a section and who we are as people. We have been, each of us has been in the orchestra a little bit, different lengths of time and so forth. So, but we all have come to the orchestra from different places and different backgrounds. Um, uh, Obviously, you may not recognize these people's faces because usually we sit in the back of the orchestra quite far away and we have stuff in front of our faces all the time. So we thought this would be a great opportunity for you to get to know the horns. We're going to go in order of who's been with the orchestra the longest, but that would be me. Those of you who have watched these videos before and come to the pre-concert talks that we have for the symphony, you know a lot about me already. But what I will say is that I came to Central Washington to teach at Central Washington University in January of 1991. 2 weeks later, I substituted with the Yakima Symphony for the first time. That following fall, I joined the orchestra as third horn. They had an opening at that time. And the year after that, I began as principal horn. And so I've been at it for almost 30 years as a member of the orchestra. So, and that's all you need to know about me. Let me introduce you now to the person who plays third horn with our orchestra. He's been with the orchestra almost as long as I have. And his name is Harry Bell. Harry?
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, I've been with the orchestra since 1993. But let's see, let me go back. I was trained by the famous horn teacher, Philip Farkas at Indiana University. Studied with him for 2 years. We're graduating in 1974. From there, I played in DC military bands and toured all 50 states, which was kind of fun. And then in '77, I freelanced in Portland for a while till it all dried up pretty much. And then I decided to become a chemical engineer. And so I got a degree from Oregon State, worked in government as a, scientist, engineer, project manager, you name it, computer programmer. That was from '82 to 2015. And when I came out here at Hanford, I was, all along continuing to play the French horn, continuing to practice. And so yeah, I joined YSO in '93 and have been playing ever since.
So Philip Farkas is a really famous name in the horn world. He was the principal horn of the Chicago Symphony during a very important time, and then taught at Indiana University for quite a while after that. What was it like to study with such a famous person?
Oh, he was always full of stories and just a really great guy. He's written The Art of French Horn Playing, Art of Brass Playing, and so yeah, it was great. But the key thing with him, it was all about stories and visualizing. As yeah, a lot of his other students have noted the focus on visualization. So
Interesting.
yeah.
So and your time at Hanford, obviously, how did you find time to practice? I mean,
Oh,
that's a lot of hours, I would think.
uh, well, it's a regular 8-hour day there at Hanford, but yeah, I wasn't practicing as much, let's say, as now. Of course, now I'm retired and have plenty of time. I'm a full-time professional musician. So,
Oh, that's great.
except this year.
Just one final question for you. there's a lot of talk about how music training and so forth stimulates your brain in certain ways, such that people can become quite good at other things. Do you think that your musical training had something to do with your choice of chemical engineering,
Yeah,
or do
I
you
think
feel that
there's
it
something
contributed something to
there's
it?
something to that. I suspect it's a comfort with symbols. And so if you're comfortable with symbols, you're liable to be good at math or computer programming. Um, uh, I don't know. You're just generally smarter if you're a musician.
And I remember you're actually a pretty avid chess player. Is that right?
Oh yeah, actually, yeah. I did take second place in an online tournament recently,
Oh, how about that?
and I beat. Oh, my big claim to fame was I beat Jeremy Silman at the Grants Pass to win the Grants Pass Open years ago. He's writing chess books and everything. So.
Oh, wow. Well, congratulations. That's pretty cool. So yeah, I have a funny feeling you could do your own music from home video just on, all the different things that you've done. You
We'll
don't have
see.
to, you don't have to commit to that. Right, right.
Okay.
Okay, so next is Josiah Boothby. Josiah has been with the orchestra. Well, he'll tell us about that. Go ahead, Josiah.
Well, I suppose I could say I started with the orchestra in about 1999 as a substitute while I was a student at Central Washington University, studying with the illustrious Dr. Jeffrey Snedeker. I uh, I spent 2 years as a substitute while I was a student, and when I left school in 2001, I thought I would probably never work with the Yakima Symphony again.
We didn't kick you out.
No, no, no. I just I my substitute position seemed to be tied to me being a student at the time, and I never imagined that I would ever want to go further than about 10 miles for a gig. And then in the
Now, where were you located at that point?
in Seattle,
In Seattle, right?
you
Yes.
know, far, far away, in a galaxy far, far away, right? Uh, and several years later, and I think 2013, uh, a good friend of mine who is the principal trombonist with the Yakima Symphony, Sarah Mayo, said, Josiah, we've got an audition. You should really take this audition. But I don't wanna. And then I started working on the excerpts, and I show up to the hall, and but I don't wanna. I just want to go home. And I eventually sort of tricked myself into doing the audition in spite of what I determined was actually a manifestation of performance anxiety, and I managed to win that audition as fourth horn player, and until about a year ago, I was the fourth horn player with the Yakima Symphony. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, fourth horn player is sort of the role of is the bottom of the section. We get to play the low stuff, and often we play a role that is a little bit independent of the rest of the section. Sometimes I am third clarinet or second bass clarinet. Sometimes I'm third bassoon. Sometimes I'm a trombone player in between the tenor trombone and the bass trombone. Sometimes I am fourth trumpet. And it's a really fun position to get to play. And then about a year ago, we had an audition for second horn in which I lost my job as fourth horn player, and I'm really upset about it. On the other hand, it does mean that we got the wonderful and charming Sandon Lohr to join our section. So it's not a total loss.
Hey, before we get into more about that, what tell us more about the 2000s? What where else have you been playing? What else have you been doing?
Well, in 2003, I decided to finish my bachelor's degree, and then a couple of years later started my master's degree at the University of Washington. And during that time, I was doing a lot of collaboration with composers. A lot of my interests, while I enjoy playing in orchestras, a lot of the things that I have had the most fun doing have involved working with composers. Some who have been in or affiliated with the Yakima Symphony long enough may remember our associate concertmaster from I think 2000, 2001, Eva Trambach, who is a fantastic composer, who was a master's and then doctoral student at the University of Washington with the Digital Arts Department, DX Arts, Digital and Experimental Arts. And she and I have done a number of collaborations that have taken me to Poland and New York City and Los Angeles for a number of performances. We've done recording sessions in all sorts of fun places, like the Cistern at Fort Worden, which has this magnificently long reverberation time. I've worked with as a couple of composers who are members of the Yakima Symphony, Angelique Potit and Ryan Hare, principals of the clarinet and bassoon sections, respectively. And the three of us are actually members of a trio, Artemisia Winds. And we recently had our first performance. And because it's a pandemic, of course, it's a pre-recorded performance. And we can provide a link to that later.
Sure. So, and that is something that I've known about you for a very long time, which is a very strong interest in contemporary music, experimental music,
improvisation.
Improvisation, technology, and so forth. Mm-hmm. It's very different on the French horn, isn't it? That's not one of the sort of traditional instruments that we associate with those types of things.
No, it absolutely is one of those instruments.
I didn't say it wasn't one of those instruments. I said it wasn't one of the traditional instruments.
No, I think it is actually one of the traditional instruments for it.
Okay,
I think,
well, we're going to have a fight now.
Okay. I think horn players get a little bit of a reputation for being very conservative in terms of their musical tastes, and I think that horn players, by and large, are no more conservative than violinists or pianists or trumpet players. It's that a lot of the music that sounds really, really excellent for our instrument that gets played in movies are these beautiful soaring lines. And we sometimes forget some of the really weird sounding things that our instrument gets to do in say the original Star Trek series, where we're playing stopped in these really ugly abrasive sounds, or some of the collaborations of horn players throughout the 20th century with the top tier composers of the avant-garde. And Jeff, as you very well know, the horn has been a part of jazz since the beginning, since before jazz was called jazz.
Well, you know, I know that you're right, but it's still, our listeners are going to go,
right?
Really? Wow, I never thought of that. And that's because you are absolutely right. And you got me on that one. Good for you. No, seriously, I think you're absolutely right that people would be surprised to know how progressive, how experimental, and how contemporary the horn has been all along. We just didn't know it.
Well, and I think that we often live under the shadow of the trumpet section in so many ways. And a lot of the really well-known avant-garde players of brass instruments are trumpet players. And then there are a couple of trombone players, and people forget that the horn is a part of that tradition. Yeah. And forbid the tuba, right? And there's some really awesome things being done on and with the tuba. So I think we get a little forgotten about in a way that I don't think is deserved. And I think part of that is that the horn and the trombone, for instance, have relatively limited facility in terms of really acrobatic technique. And a lot of what people think of when they think avant-garde or experimental composition has to do with these very acrobatic things that are perfectly suited to instruments like the cello or the piano or the saxophone family.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
And it's not that there aren't really acrobatic things being done on the horn, even things that are perfectly possible and in reach for horn players. It's that I think there are so many more pianists, so many more violinists, so many more trumpet players that we sometimes get lost in the noise.
Saxophones too.
Yeah.
So great, boy! I see now you could do your own music from home thing. I gotta tell people about this. So okay, all right, Sandon, it's your turn. Sandon is our newest member of the orchestra. As a matter of fact, he's so new that he hasn't played with the orchestra yet. But that's okay. Tell us about yourself.
Hello, I'm Sandon Lohr, and I play the horn. I'm originally from Pullman, Washington, and I went to school in Pittsburgh, where I studied with Bill Caballero, who's the principal horn there, an absolutely incredible player, and ended up coming back here around home and got jobs with a few orchestras around here. I am currently the assistant horn in Tacoma as well as Boise, so I have a bit of a commute, and now I'm the fourth horn here in Yakima, and I'm very much looking forward to playing with the orchestra.
Yeah, that's great. You also have some experiences as a soloist too, right? You just participated recently in the International Horn Competition of America. Am I right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, you placed pretty high, as I recall.
I got to the semifinal, or yeah, that's the term for it.
Yeah.
The semifinal round. There were only 3 people in the semifinals, so
It counts.
So, counts as top 3, though they only give an official numbered position to someone who made it to the finals, which unfortunately I did not.
Yeah, but I tell you what, I've been a part of that competition, and so I know what it's like, and to get that far is very impressive. So that's terrific. Let's see. So the next sort of go round here is let's talk a little bit about our orchestral playing. In specifically, I think we had talked earlier about a certain or Josiah brought up the idea of the role of each of our spots in the orchestra, and I think I'd like to head that direction now. With our conversation. In a way, it's kind of easy to think about what a principal horn does in an orchestra, right? We're supposed to be the leaders and we play all the solos, which is not true. But we are supposed to provide some semblance of leadership in making decisions about how loud we're going to play. Those who have observed an orchestra more closely will notice that the principal horn tends to sit when you're facing from the audience on the far right, which means the bell position tends to waft down the section. And there is an actual intent there. It wasn't always like that. Didn't have to be, and it doesn't even have to be like that. But traditionally, orchestra conductors and to a certain extent section leaders tend to like the idea of having the rest of the section hear their sound to guide articulation and volume and tone colors and things like that. So again, it's kind of easy to think about what a principal horn does. What might be interesting is to realize that there are very specific roles and certain expectations that are associated with each individual part. Perhaps, Josiah, you started the conversation with the fourth horn. You're now second horn. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what it's like playing second horn?
So the second horn position is, along with fourth, a low horn position. And historically, before valves were invented, horns often came in pairs. And so each in the modern horn section, we actually have two pairs of high horn, low horn. So first and second are a pair of high horn, low horn. Third and fourth are a pair of high horn, low horn. And so as a second horn player, I'm basically the low horn half of the high-low pair of the first and second horns. And in music that's old enough, Jeff and I would be playing usually in the same key. Our instruments would be the same length. And then Harry and Sandon would similarly be playing instruments of the same length, same keys. So that the two pairs would have more harmonic options even before we had vowels invented. And in terms of modern tradition, some of that has carried over as a vestige. But in general, I play a low part that is usually tightly intertwined with whatever Jeff is doing. So it's usually more of a supportive role. And in terms of sort of the section as a whole, a big part of my job is actually to transmit Jeff's tone color and dynamic ideas and articulation and volume through the section. So one of the things that I have to do is match him as best as possible so that the rest of the section can fit our sound concept a little more easily. If I don't blend very well with Jeff, it becomes much more difficult for the others to really ascertain how to sound and how to fit in.
It really does kind of work its way down the section, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I once heard it described, or playing second horn is described as being sort of like Ginger Rogers for Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire, right? Where Fred Astaire always got lots of attention and was very athletic, but as people will remind, those who are paying attention will remind us, Ginger Rogers did most of the same things backwards and wearing high heels, which makes the second horn a very interesting challenge, very different than expected. Does that sort of fit what you think?
Absolutely. And to go to that dance analogy, anybody who's done any kind of partner dancing knows that a good follow makes it much easier to lead. And so having a second horn player who can give the kind of support that we try to give makes it far less tiring to play principal. And so one of my jobs, I'm not going to typically take over Jeff's parts in tiring music, although we have done that on occasion if we don't have access to an assistant role. But in general, if I'm playing in tune, if I'm playing at a good supportive volume, Jeff doesn't have to work as hard.
It's true. That's true. Okay, Harry, your turn. Tell us about what it's like to play third in an orchestra.
Well, I guess like Josiah was saying, I'm the lower part of the second of the two pairs of horns, I guess. I kind of take the lead from you, from the principal horn, in all things, all aspects of music, articulation, dynamics, overall volume level, and intonation, although intonation is never a problem, but if it were, I would adjust. So, but
thank you so much.
No, that's about it.
Well, third horn does get a fair number of solos in certain repertoire, don't they?
Oh, right. Yeah, let's see. But Brahms, I guess, is some famous ones. Yeah. What else? I can not drawing a blank.
So what do you sort of switch gears in your brain when the time comes to do that, or do you feel like there's a sort of organic aspect to it that you just kind of do what you do?
Oh, for you, time to do a solo?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I guess I'm frankly a bit a believer in beta blockers if it gets really bad. So.
Right. Well, and nerves definitely play into
Yeah.
a lot of the things that we sort of try to figure out.
Yeah.
Sandon, tell us about playing fourth. What's it like?
Good question. This is my first time playing fourth horn in a professional
Okay.
orchestra.
All right. So coming into it, what do you know? What are your goals going to be?
Well, my goals are going to be the best fourth horn player I possibly can be.
Okay.
So
So
basically,
yeah, go ahead.
listen to Josiah because he knows what he's talking about when he talks about fourth horn. So just follow the expertise that we
Yeah.
have in the section and plan accordingly.
Yeah, those are some big shoes to fill. He ever since I've known him, Josiah has wanted to be a low horn player, you know, at least that's what he said, and so he's worked hard at doing that, and we've benefited in the section from someone because you think about it, a lot of times. Everybody wants to be, when you're younger, everybody wants to be first horn because they got all the cool parts and the solos and they get all the attention and all that sort of thing. And nobody really wants to, it's almost like the farther down the section you move, it's like, oh, you're not as good. You're not as good. You're not as good. In the real world, nothing could be farther from the truth. Everybody has to bring a full tool belt and know how to use all the tools on it to every concert, because one of the things Josiah said, it really rings true. It's sitting up on the principal chair. It has certain advantages, to be honest. I don't have somebody blowing in my face, which can be helpful in terms of my responsibility being to sort of kind of know what I'm supposed to be doing. And then actually execute it. And if I get too much sort of I'll just use the phrase, if the support is not there from the rest of the section, it becomes very difficult and as Josiah pointed out, very tiring. So what's it like? Yeah, I'll just open it up. What's it like when it's a bad section experience? What's it like?
Oh, well, intonation's the big deal. I've played in this section with the when the first horn was like about a quarter step sharp, and the person wouldn't even acknowledge that they were out of tune. It just so I didn't go back again.
Oh, wow. Well, it is hard work. That's true.
But yeah, the intonation's the big deal, and
Yeah.
to me, yeah.
Honestly, for me, I can take all sorts of bad technique, bad playing, but if the people that I'm working with are constructive and fun to be around, I'm there. I'm in 100%. Once we've got people in the section that have no interest in being good people, that's when it ruins it for me. So being in a fun, constructive section, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
What do you think, Sandon? What's your experience been?
Well, my experience is that intonation is very important, and when you're playing in a section that struggles with intonation, it feels that you're not in tune because there's nowhere that you can place the note that won't be out of tune with someone else. And so you don't play as well because you don't know where to place the notes, and you just kind of have to, well, in those cases, I just try and listen across the orchestra, listen to the basses, and just lock in with them as best I can, ignore the horns around me. And well, that really doesn't get any sort of the cohesive sound. A good section should play cohesively, should play as similarly and with the same style as they reasonably can.
Yeah.
And if you have to ignore your colleagues for the sake of intonation, you're not going to match on articulations, you're not going to match on dynamics and all the other things. So the core of section playing in terms of technically really is intonation.
Yeah, that it definitely starts there, because it's sort of like, if you can't play in tune, like how can you possibly blend in other ways, right? So yeah, it's an interesting challenge. I know that when I always appreciate the fact that people are willing to adjust, because when I'm responsible for laying it out there, I need to trust that people are going to, either go with me, or, as Harry has done many times, Josiah too, just kind of lean over and go, I think you're pretty sharp there, and I don't mind hearing that, because the last thing I want to, I mean, I can understand why people don't want to hear it, because you're worried about a lot of different things when you're trying to lay it out there. But no, I'd much rather, like you say, have a cohesive sound. That then we just sound better. The orchestra sounds better, and that needs to be the sort of the team sport, right? That's what we're hoping for. So anyway, so let's finish our conversation here with some highlights. Tell us a little bit about what are some favorite orchestral moments, and obviously, Sandon, maybe not with the symphony just yet, with this symphony just yet, but let's start with you. What are some of your favorite, or maybe just one of your favorite memories as an orchestral player that inspires you to keep going, and maybe something you're looking for that hopefully you'll experience again with the symphony when we finally get going again? Sandon, what do you think? I was laying it out for you, Sandon.
Oh,
Sorry.
sorry.
About that. No, that's all right. No, I didn't say it very clearly.
Well, in the position of assistant horn in some of the orchestras, they do, when there's a vacancy in the section, they do move me over. And I think the piece that really made me love the sort of low playing in an orchestra is Siegfried Idol by Wagner, which has just a wonderful second horn part. There's only two horns in there, but there's just so many moments where you just have a long low note and you just sit on it and you get to be the foundation of the chord. And that is just a wonderful feeling. And it's, you play low horn, you've got a slow vibration in your lips, and it's just relaxing to just sit on sustain this low note.
Yeah, that's a great piece. It's so transparent, so beautiful. That's great.
That piece is incidentally one of the pieces that was formative in me really finding that I loved playing low horn when I was in high school.
Nice. What's it, Josiah? What's another one, or maybe a favorite memory from the symphony or Yakima Symphony?
Well, I'll give two. One with Yakima Symphony was when we played Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, and I think in the same season we did Beethoven's Third Symphony, and I got to play second horn in the Third Symphony and fourth horn in the Ninth Symphony. And in the Third Symphony, there's this little tiny second horn solo, and there's this trio among the three horns of the section that is just this glorious part. And then in the Ninth Symphony, there's actually a solo for the fourth horn player, and it's this it seems to come out of nowhere. And with Yakima, it was actually the first time I'd ever gotten to play that part. And as a low horn player, that's really one of the choice moments. The other favorite orchestral experience was probably getting to be the fourth horn soloist for the Schumann Concertstück, which is a concerto for four horns. And similarly, the fourth horn player is sort of the bass voice of the section and gets to play a little bit independently of the rest sometimes. And it's a lot of fun for me to be able to to get that kind of moment to stand out.
Oh, those are great. And you did a great job on both of those Beethovens. That was a special time. Really
Thank
was.
you. Thank you.
Harry, what do you think?
I have maybe 6 favorite pieces. The number one, oddly enough, was the Rachmaninoff's Second Symphony. I guess I'd never performed it before the Yakima Symphony with Lawrence Golan. But that's maybe one of my favorite symphonies of all. And of course, Bruckner's Fourth Symphony this past season, or what? Yeah. Mahler's First, just fairly recently. We did Strauss's Heldenleben and the several of the other tone poems by Richard Strauss, and the Stravinsky Rite of Spring. And for sentimental reasons, we did a performance of the Haydn 59th Symphony with Lawrence, and I got to play principal. That was kind of fun. And we did La Mer in that, Debussy's La Mer in that. So
Yeah.
a lot of good experiences.
Oh, and a nice variety in your list right there. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because I remember, it's easy for the principal horn to talk about the big solos, like Check 5 or the end of Heldenleben or Bruckner as being favorite memory. But see, they're not really favorite memories for me because I just remember sitting there going, "Don't screw up." Don't screw up. The actual happy memories I have are things like when we have these chords that just everything comes together and they just glow. Like at the end of what's the one I was just thinking about it. Well, okay. Something similar, but like the whole planets. When we play as a section like that's just thrilling. We have so much unison and so many chords and things like that that just glow. Those make me happy. Those are the happy. Or the last time we played Schumann 3, stuff like that. That just those things make me happy. The other stuff just makes me nervous. On the other hand, it's very satisfying to make it through without scratching it up too much. So that's the feeling of triumph or relief tends to be stronger than any sort of happiness along those lines.
I will say another one of my favorite moments in all of music, regardless of anything else, is near the end of what is it, the Mendelssohn Scottish Symphony, the bassoon clarinet duet. And I'm just sitting there, depending on what position in the section I am, dreading the high notes coming, or hoping that my low notes will come out. But listening to that little duet just for that moment is one of my absolute favorites of all, regardless of literature.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll be getting back into the orchestra here pretty soon, and so we can start enjoying each other's company in person. Anyway, thanks so much for each of you for your time. To Josiah Boothby, to Harry Bell, and to Sandon Lohr. I'm Jeff Snedeker. Thanks for watching this video, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon at a concert of the Yakima Symphony Orchestra.